Well, hello everybody and welcome here to YouTalk TV. As you can see, today we have a different format. Yeah, here we are, Fran and I, and we have Vanessa from the channel English with Vanessa.
Yeah, Speak English with Vanessa. She's had that channel for over 4 years and she's almost reached 2 million subscribers.
No way.
Oh my God, what an honor is going to be having this talk. And we're going to talk about the 10 ultimate tips to learn and speak English like a pro, like Vanessa does. Yeah, so welcome, Vanessa. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me. It's nice to be able to meet other people who are passionate about the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an honor because we're reaching now 500,000 subscribers. You're 4 times as big as us as we are. And
it'll happen very soon for you too.
Oh, hopefully. But yes. Anyways, tell us a little bit about your background, your channel, your teaching experience, and yes, whatever comes to your mind.
Sure. Well, I started teaching English about 10 years ago in the classroom, and that was mainly to kids in different countries around the world. But when I had the chance to teach adults, I felt this like spark inside of me because the adults were really excited about learning. They had a goal. They were passionate. They felt kind of that same feeling that I did. So I decided to try to figure out a way to teach adults, and on the internet is one of the best ways to do that. It is a new field on the internet, teaching English on YouTube or having a website with courses and all of that, but I like the challenge, so that's what I do. I make YouTube videos to help people who are already an intermediate level. They can already understand me fairly well, and to reach an advanced fluent level. That's the goal.
Absolutely. And what about your audience? What countries you have your main audiences from?
Yeah, it really seems like they're spread out throughout the world because I know for you, you're teaching a lot of people who have Spanish as their native language.
Absolutely.
But because all of my content is in English, it could be people from Japan, Italy, Brazil, Poland, Argentina, Egypt. It could be from anywhere because I'm not speaking their native language. So it's going to be, quite diverse, an international group.
All right. So yes, we're here specifically to talk about 10 ways, so the 10 ultimate tips to improve your English, to get better, to learn how to speak like a pro. We've been lately doing a lot on our channel, a lot of don't do this, don't do that. So now for a change, we're going to focus on what you need to do. And what if we start talking about grammar and pros and cons on focusing on grammar, traditional grammar practice, or what's your point on that, Vanessa?
About it?
Yeah, well, I feel like I can only share from my personal experience and what I've heard from other English learners, some of my students. But from my personal experience, I'm sorry to say that I had some traditional Spanish classes in school that were not so great. I learned in that traditional way where you had to memorize grammar points and it just make learning not fun. And really I feel like it made me not interested in continuing and being motivated. It wasn't real because I wasn't ever exposed to real Spanish. And so in my mind, I thought maybe it's because of Spanish, not because of the learning method. I didn't know about that yet. So I switched to learning French. And for some reason, that approach was completely different than Spanish. In Spanish, it was only school, only grammar textbooks, just this very rigid, not real approach. But with French, I got a chance to speak one-on-one with a French speaker. I went to different French groups in my city, and I had the chance to live abroad, but I had a lot of friends who could also speak French. So this real experience and really learning grammar, really learning everything in that natural way exploded this happiness inside of me. Like, oh, I want to do this. I'm so excited to do this. And probably a lot of, your students feel that about English, or they're trying to gain that back. So learning it in a real way with real results in the wild when you speak with people, that's a really great way to feel motivated to improve your grammar instead of just textbooks.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's common to any foreign language learning, apparently, because so it happens when learning Spanish. It might have happened to you when learning French, because you're almost fluent or bilingual in French too, I've heard.
Sure,
And
if I had done that old way with French, then it probably would have had the same experience.
yes,
But because it was a different experience,
but you
that happened
French,
more
you started
positively.
you learned the right way.
Right way, with the
Yeah,
real way.
thankfully.
Yes,
Maybe I'll go back to Spanish and learn the right way someday.
yes. So what's your point on
Well,
grammar learning and
yeah,
traditional?
that's what usually happens when it comes to learning a language. And in language, that there's no connection between the classes and their real life, right? So yeah, well, we spend years and years learning just grammar, theories, things like that, and rules. And there's no connection with the real English or the real language in this case when you try to learn Spanish, right? Because probably you spend years trying to learn, I don't know, the verbs, the past, and when you use the subject, the verb, whatever. Yeah, you know that doesn't work definitely. And it happens the same here with the when it comes to learning English.
Learning English, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Mm,
Is
yeah.
is you learning all the theory behind it, but you never learn how to drive, really. You
Yeah.
learn all the mechanics of a car, but you never try to drive yourself. It's kind of like that, just becoming an expert on grammar, but then never using it.
Of course, I believe that grammar at the beginning is necessary. It's necessary. I mean, you need to learn a little bit of grammar. Well, once you get that, you have to put that in practice.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's an important thing.
I think our approach is always going from practice to the theory,
Yes.
not the other way around.
Yeah.
Well, here in
Mhm.
Spain is spending a lot of time on irregular verbs, phrasal verbs. You know that that
Too
magic
much
word
time.
that yeah. And but then you never get to practice what it should be the other way around. When you're a kid, no matter you're learning Spanish or English, you first focusing on listening, then speaking, correcting yourself. Then you read what you talk, and then you write what you read, and then you analyze if there's regular, whatever. That's the logical way to go.
Yeah.
And we tend to do it the other way around. Why? Well, that'd be a whole different story. But most likely, it's simple for the teacher. Okay, guys, go to page 35. Oh wow, the time, yeah, 7:15, 2 minutes, and then you spend a whole lot of the time doing that. It's more, it's simple for the teacher, and it's easy to assess. And I think that's the reason behind, but it's not definitely practical for the students.
I feel like a lot of teachers, they have that expression, teach to the test. So
Oh,
they're
yeah.
teaching you only to pass the test.
Oh, hey, that's say it again.
That's
I'm gonna
it.
take it down. Teach the test, because
Teach the text.
that is. We were telling you the other day, here in Spain, it's a lot of people are looking for that. Just passing the test, get a degree, no matter what your level is. Just say it again. What was the expression? Pass
To
the
teach to the test. Like a
teach to the
teacher is
test.
just teaching to the
Mhm.
test. But when you're really wanting to learn the language, you're not just going to want to pass the test. You're going to want to have a deeper understanding, which is a little bit tougher sometimes. You're not just memorizing stuff, but you can
Just
actually
practice.
use it in real life.
Yeah, use it, make mistakes, and correct them. That's the other stuff. What about Vanessa? What about reading? How would you approach that? How would you focus on reading, or how important it is? What's your point on that reading?
If you have never read anything in English except for, some simple sentences in a textbook a long time ago, I would recommend starting really simple. And for me, I love reading books, but I know that not everyone has that same passion. And if you struggle with that in your native language, don't expect your personality to be completely different in English. You can always start with reading an article about, like, a review of a movie that you like, something that is going to spark your interest, but starting with something small with vocabulary that you're generally familiar with. And if you want to go to a more in-depth level, like reading a book, for me, I love to read in French. I love to read kind of fast-paced stories that are meant for like junior high students, maybe like 12, 13, 14-year-old students, because there's not too many descriptions.
Exactly.
The story is pretty action filled and you can follow it instead of trying to think about what all these adjectives mean.
Yeah.
So it keeps your interest longer.
And
And actually on my channel, I have a video about some beginner book recommendations, like James and the Giant Peach or Holes or Number the Stars, real books.
It's more day-to-day language that kind of, right? Oh, by the way, you guys, you need to subscribe to Speak English with Vanessa. You have the link below. And go ahead, subscribe, comment, and yes, you have a new teacher here.
Yeah. Talking about reading, I remember when I was learning English that I started, well, I had a base. I studied English at high school, but my English was horrible. But I remember reading a book I think it was by Michael Crichton. That one.
Christian, yes.
Christian, yeah, I don't know how to pronounce that. But I remember that it was impossible for me to follow the book. I mean, I remember reading 3 or 4 pages.
You were getting lost.
Yeah, completely lost. Completely lost. I didn't understand most of the words. But for me, well, it was, because I was motivated with English, but I wanted to read the book. I wanted to read the book. And after 4 pages, I don't know who won the battle. Well, at least I know who won the battle. That was, I could continue, but it was quite hard. It was very, very hard.
So you kind of followed the main.
I could follow
the main
that.
idea. Yes.
What we usually recommend when it comes to learning English, for example, if you want to read a real book, we recommend beginners start with a book they've already read in Spanish, or a book they've already seen the movie.
Oh,
there's a movie about the book.
Yes.
Yeah, that helps a lot.
Yeah, and what about
the idea?
Yeah.
What about bestsellers like Stephen King or Michael Crichton or what's the guy of the Da Vinci Code?
Dan Brown.
Dan Brown.
Dan Brown.
Yeah.
Or Kim Follett.
What happens with bestsellers is, in our opinion, is they're kind of current. Yes, it's like a movie. So it's day-to-day language. There are a lot of dialogues. So most of it, like 90% of the language you're gonna find on those books, you can actually use. So it's not too literary, which is it's for a purist might not be good for learning purposes. Then they're catchy too. I mean, they're what we call page turner. Is that, you guys use that, a page turner?
Oh yeah, it's a page turner for a reason. It got that award for a reason.
Exactly, and they're short episodes, and I think it's a good idea. There's an article that we wrote a few years ago on books to get started, and we recommend it. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, I remember.
Bestsellers.
Yeah, bestsellers.
Not high quality literature, but maybe it's for learning purposes.
And it depends on what kind of bestsellers. Because, for example, I remember started reading Game of Thrones. Oh man, I remember. And I read just 20 pages.
It might have been difficult to understand too.
It wasn't possible.
It's kind of based on
I don't know, describing a tree for 2 pages or 3 pages. Just talking about a tree. I remember. And stop.
Too many descriptions.
Yeah.
All right. So the first one was the first step. Let's recap a little bit. Was you need to base your learning grammar, your learning English on practical grammar, on real grammar, or just going from practice to theory. Then the second one, reading, is focused on the real language, not real language, but easy language or language of books that you can maybe use in real life, right?
Yes.
Okay, or bestsellers.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about writing.
Yeah, and number 3 is writing.
What do you think about it?
Yeah, I feel like using writing and learning English is an easy way to feel like you're practicing English, but maybe if your goal, I feel like a lot of the people, at least who find my material, their goal is to improve their speaking. So it's important to assess what you're doing to reach your goal. Are you doing 90% writing to reach your goal of speaking?
It doesn't make any sense.
You can read out loud what you've written. That's fine. You're still creating language, but just make sure that you're writing. If your goal is something else, like improve your listening skills, improve your speaking. If your goal is not completely just to improve your writing, just make sure that your writing doesn't exceed the time that you spend with other categories of English, because it can be kind of easy just to spend a lot of time writing and feel like you're doing a lot, but it's not going to be as helpful with speaking as actually speaking.
Yeah, of course.
Actually, yes.
And there's a problem with that, that at least from the point of view of a Spaniard, that well, words are completely written different and you pronounce that. You pronounce them. So that's a big problem.
Yeah, normally what we're doing by focusing on writing first, which is what we do here in Spain, just focusing on reading and writing first, is we're hindering or we're hampering our pronunciation, our listening, our fluency skills, which is what should be the first step.
Yeah.
So even if you just want to learn English, no matter all the ways, it's always need to be focusing on first listen, what we said before, speaking, listening, speaking what you, or talking about what you listened, and then be reading, it'd be the next natural step, then writing, and then it'd be grammar. So starting the other way around, it doesn't seem like logical step, right?
Yeah, because I remember when I was at school, I remember learning the list of verbs, regular and irregular verbs, like eat, eate, eaten, speak, spoken, listened, things like that. Yeah. And first, you try to talk using that way, so it's impossible. I listened to you.
Yeah, it has a really bad influence on your spoken language, because obviously the way it's written is radically different from what you're supposed to say. So if you try to sound out a word or figure out how they sound by the way they're written, it's like you're dyslexic. It's like, yeah, there's nothing you can do about it. So
it doesn't help so much with speaking.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a good middle ground though, because we spend a lot of time learning by ourselves. It's great to have ways to speak with other people and be out in the world and using it, but there is some at-home study time as well, and we're probably going to be writing for some of that.
Oh yeah.
I feel like if you are writing your own sentences, maybe you're answering a question at the end of one of your videos. If you say, okay, we talked about this concept, can you how would you answer this question using the concept? Well, if you write your answer in the YouTube comments, but then you also read it out loud, it's not, you're still reading and you're saying it out loud and you're writing. It's not spontaneous speaking, but I think it's still a good middle ground if you're reading out loud, because you're thinking, okay, does it sound right? I wrote this, does it sound right? You're kind of getting
balancing
closer to speaking.
Yeah.
So it's somewhere in the middle. At least reading out loud what you wrote can be helpful. If you need to write, or if you really love that, that's great. Follow that passion. But if you read it out loud, it will help as well. Or if you're reading a book, try to read it out loud.
Oh, that's gonna help you out. Yes, and I also think like the way you write it, the way you organize, let's say, for example, an article or an essay, it's going to help you out big time on your speech.
Yeah.
So if you know how to organize an introduction, then a 3 paragraph article or essay, and then a conclusion, and then what happens within each one of those paragraphs, that's going to help you out big time a lot to organize your speech, your public speaking, your speech, the way you speak,
even your own language.
Yeah, so that's a positive thing.
In Spanish.
But of course, you need to tackle that maybe when your level's a little bit higher, or like you said, Vanessa, it needs to be something balanced. But definitely, what we are against is of just focusing right from the start on writing, then reading, then speaking, which is what we traditionally tend to do here. Then number 4, it'd be
listening.
Listening comprehension.
People hate that. And people have a lot of trouble with that.
What's your tip?
They don't know how to improve that.
What's your tip, or what's your point on listening comprehension? How you work on that, the importance of it, you name it.
I feel like I hear a lot of my students telling me I want to understand movies and TV shows.
Oh, wow.
But when they watch my videos, they say, oh, I can understand you pretty well, but my videos are way different than listening to 3 or 4 characters in a movie,
Yes.
having a scripted speech about some kind of complex topic. So
Yeah.
how can you get from understanding, an English lesson to understanding multiple people speaking together with some background noise? They have scripted words, this kind of TV show, movie language. It can still be real English, but it's much more complex. So if you just dive right into that and say, okay, I'm going to watch, this complex movie.
I'm going to try to make out what they say, right?
Yeah, it's going to be, if you feel like you don't understand 50% of it, that's a lot. So you need to kind of scale it back a little bit and start with something a little bit simpler. Try to understand just 2 people speaking together, 2 people who you understand, and then maybe work up to 3. YouTube is great for that. There's so many videos with just 1 person speaking, and then maybe 2 people speaking. And I have a lot of that stuff on my channel where I talk with my husband a lot. We have a lot of videos together. So if you're familiar with my voice, adding 1 extra voice is kind of the next level. Yeah, you can kind of slowly get more difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. So just accommodate it to your level and just going little by little, right? Our point on listening comprehension is that the way we pronounce has a direct impact on the way we understand it. And that's very important, especially for us, the Hispanic population, because our pronunciation, our home language, is radically different.
Yeah.
So basically, if we're have your life saying, what do you want me to do? Or I want you to put it on, or I have a book. That's so different from real language that is like speaking 2 languages. So our recommendation is sound good. Our motto is sound good, understand better. So the better you sound, the better you'll understand. So if you teach your students to say, hey, do you mind if I sit down? Hey, do you mind if I sit down? And what happens instead of do you mind if I sit down? Going from do you mind if I sit down to do you mind if I sit down? Hey, do you mind if I sit down? Chances are, if you teach your students how to say, hey, do you mind if I sit down? When they watch a movie or a simple conversation and they listen to, hey, do you mind if I sit down?
Yeah.
Most likely they're going to get to understand. So that's our main approach to...
And that's probably
right?
When in classes, for example, the teacher usually says when they talk to the students, they say, sorry, would you mind opening the door? And then they talk like that.
Classroom English.
People don't speak like that in real life. So they say, do you mind sit down? What color is it? They speak like that, but nobody speaks that way. That's a problem.
So our main focus is, one of the main focuses is on pronunciation, fluency, and just try to make it sound like the real thing. So the more similar it is, the easier it's going to be to understand. They're going to get you understand you no matter what. And even if you say, wait a minute, I'll get you understand you. But you won't understand them when they'll say, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah. So yeah, we always think that working on sentences, it helps a lot. Well, it helps your pronunciation, so it helps your listening comprehension. Because we're used to working on just words, vocabulary, but it's very, very important to work on sentences, so that way you get the structures. And apart from that, you get something very important, is the linking and the intonation. This is a real English. That is something people don't take care of. So that's the thing that it's completely different. My brother say, for example, saying, what are you talking about? Even if you pronounce it perfectly, what are you talking about? Then in real life, people are going to say, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? So that's going to give you more fluency, and it's going to help you. It's going to help you speak faster and better. That's the thing. I don't know what you think about it.
Yeah, it seems like you're kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone, if we can use that idiom, that you're improving your listening skills because you know about how native speakers link together, real pronunciation when we cut off sounds, all of that, but you're also improving your pronunciation. So that's 2 great things to improve at the same time. Sounds good to me.
And one of the main topics that you focus your channel, Speak English with Vanessa, it is actually pronunciation, linking words, those letters that you skip, like the tap T, or all that. Well, tell us about it with your experience, because you teach a lot of that.
That's not very common. Yeah.
That's not common.
We thought we were the only ones.
Well, it seems like for all of us who have learned another language and have experienced not understanding other people, it kind of helps you to teach as well, because you know, oh, when I learned that, for example, in French, if you want to say I do not, I don't know, I do not know, you have to link all of that together. Je ne sais pas becomes sais pas. So the first three words are just linked together in this new word that doesn't even exist. It's just a type of pronunciation that when I learned that, I could hear it everywhere. I heard so many people all of a sudden saying it, and I thought, have people always been saying this, and I just didn't know?
You hadn't picked up on that. That's the thing. When you bring something up, then all of a sudden you say, oh man, I'm hearing that everywhere. It's like that movie, The Sixth Sense. Yeah. Yes. At the end of the movie, then you start watching all those ghosts and vampires and whatever. So
that's why I don't watch scary movies.
that is the same thing here. Is that somebody tells you, like it happened to me in the U.S. My friend by the name Armando, you know him. Yeah. He goes, hey friend, have you noticed everybody's saying, instead of why, they're saying how come? How come? I said, what? How come? And then everybody was saying it. How come you're not doing it? How come? And once you bring it up, then it just comes to you. And what you said before is another motto that we have, slogan, which is a good teacher needs to remember how they learn something. Yeah. So if you don't remember how you say something, how you learned something, then it's going to be difficult to teach it. That's what happened to you. You learned how to learn a second language, which is French, and then you have a fine intuition on how to teach your own language. So it's yeah, I'm glad you brought it up. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. What about Vanessa? The fear to talk, like that panic. What do you call that? Scene panic, or what do you call that when you're afraid of stage fright? Stage fright. Yeah, stage fright. Yeah.
You can have stage fright just walking into your office trying to speak with a coworker. The stage fright could be anywhere. Yeah, I feel like the fear of talking goes back to our experience in traditional classrooms, because every mistake that you made had such negative consequences.
Punished.
It wasn't necessarily, you were punished for them.
But even in the US,
just a learning experience.
Does it happen there?
In the US too? Because I thought it was something very particular from our culture.
I think here is worse. Yeah.
Maybe the level of punishment is a little different.
Yeah, I think so.
That feeling is still the same of, oh, I'm saying this. And I recently was thinking about how when you're in a classroom, there's 20 different peers or classmates or friends in the room with you. It's not often that we are corrected in front of 20 other people. And that feels so embarrassing when the teacher says, you're wrong, you should say it like this, or you got this wrong in front of other people. Yeah. That's kind of an unusual situation. Like even at a job.
They put you on this spot. Yeah.
Yeah. If you do something wrong in your job, hopefully your boss will talk with you one-on-one. They're not going to shout in front of the office, Vanessa, you should do this instead. So that kind of classroom situation just builds this fear of making mistakes, which I feel like that's kind of the fear of talking, is just the fear of making mistakes in front of other people, because no one wants to look silly. But in the end, we all have to learn and have to start from somewhere.
But going back to what we said before, we need to get across to our students that making mistakes is good, and you need to learn by making mistakes. Otherwise, if you don't make mistakes, it's going to be difficult for you to make progress. It's like the same when you have a company. If you're not making mistakes, you're not pushing it enough. You know, like Jeff Bezos or whatever his last name is.
Amazon guy.
Amazon. He was saying that. Yeah, guys, we're doing it back in 1998, something like that. We're doing great. We're growing a lot, but we're not making mistakes, and that's worrying me. We're not making mistakes, and that means we're not pushing it enough.
Get outside your comfort zone. Do something that's different for yourself, and no one's going to yell at you, hopefully, but it's just going to be an uncomfortable situation that's going to help you grow.
Exactly. Try to not make a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that'd be you know, our recommendations to fear to talk and stage fright. And then we have yes.
Yeah, we've been talking about pronunciation, linking, first talk, listening, writing. There's something important that people always think about it, and they really want to think in English. When they're speaking, they always say, "Oh, but I don't know how to reproduce my ideas. I don't know. I was get stuck. I don't know. I don't know. I have to translate in my mind, so I don't know what to do. So, what do you think about how can a student get a think in English? Get to think in English.
Yeah, how to think in English? How do you help your students think in English, which is the holy grail of everybody?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree that when your brain kind of has that switch and switches to English, then all of a sudden it does feel more comfortable. You feel like you're in this different world. My biggest recommendation for this is to try your best, because well, some people are living in the US or an English speaking country, but a lot of people aren't, is to try your best to immerse yourself in English, like create this mini English world around yourself, even if you have to, you know, speak Spanish with your family still and speak Spanish with your boss still. There's still ways that you can have so much English around you that you feel increasingly more comfortable. So one thing that that I've done with French is I changed the language on my phone to French, or change my social media language to French. And simply just, you know, the things that I do in daily life, like write a grocery list. Okay, I need to buy this and this and this for dinner tonight. Write those things down in French. And it's just kind of making it a normal, natural part of daily life instead
of your
of
leisure time, right?
Yeah, adding tons of new stuff to my life. I don't have that much free time. So when I'm making the things that I already do, but doing them in English, or doing them in French, that will help me to immerse myself, and it keeps my brain kind of ticking, ticking in French. And that takes time. So it's not like the first time that you change your phone to English, you're going to be totally thinking in English immediately. But slowly over time, that's really going to help create that mini English world around yourself. So that's my tip. Try to do your daily tasks in English.
That's awesome. We support that, like looking up on the internet or reading about your artist on Wikipedia, you name it.
Yeah, change Wikipedia to English. Don't use Wikipedia in your own language.
What about learning real English? We've talked about that, but what's your take on that, Vanessa?
Well, I feel like we first kind of need to define what we're talking about. What is real English?
Real English, yeah.
Is, like you said, a lot of people want to just pass the exam and that's it. They're not concerned with English that's used in daily life. But to me, real English is something that real people use to communicate together. And that's going to be something that unfortunately you don't often find in
the classroom,
traditional classroom textbook settings. I mean, that's why all of your students are here. That's why you kind of changed your way of learning English. That's because that style doesn't really help you in the real world. So I feel like if you want to learn real English, you have to focus on real English material. Don't focus on stuff that's just going to repeat those bad habits from the past.
And because no matter how much you repeat them, they're never going to change. People are not going to change their ways on talking, no matter how many times you repeat a mistake or a way of speaking, which is classroom English. Because here the bottom line is classroom English as opposed to real English. That's what explains the whole thing. And of course, you can use a lot of it, but then you need to update it and see how people speak in real life, how they put those words together, that intonation, the pronunciation tips. And that's going to change the whole thing, right?
I think there's something that is going to change because I don't know, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, people had to believe what they got in class in the classroom. But now they
can
have
check it out
to internet, YouTube, movies. the songs. They can see, they realize that the real English, what the English they listen, in movies, songs, that's not the English that you're learning in class.
Yeah, and it all comes down to maybe learning two different languages, classroom English and then real English. So even if you're gifted, super gifted, you're never gonna get away with understanding those two different languages at the same time. It might happen to you like on one of those old computers that you get stuck. But if you speak the same type of language, most likely you're gonna get to understand each other.
Yes.
Yeah. And the best way to do that is I feel like I'm a big proponent of assessing what you're doing to reach your goal.
Yeah.
So if your goal is to, speak with people and have real conversations, make friends around the world, understand movies, TV shows, this kind of real stuff, then you have to assess, what am I doing to get there? Am I using real stuff to get there?
That's the logical way to go.
Yeah, if you realize, okay, I watch 90% English teaching videos. Okay, that's English, that's fine, but you also need to start incorporating
real stuff,
conversations together. And maybe some of those English teaching channels have real conversations as well you can listen to, but try to go beyond your comfort zone and try to do something that's going to help you to really stretch yourself to reach that goal, which is using real English. That's the goal in the future. So don't just do stuff that's not going to get you to that point.
Not only doing classroom English, but just go ahead and make the move and speak real English, right? So that's step number 9. Let's go ahead and move on to our last and ultimate tip, which is motivation. What is what's your take on motivation? Is it key? What influence does it have on your learning process, on your steadiness, so to speak?
Yeah, well, I think motivation is going to be different for everyone, because we all have different motivations, things that interest us, but that's the key, is finding something that interests you. I have a 2.5-year-old, and I noticed that a lot of parents of 2-year-olds or 3-year-olds, like toddler age, that they're worried that their kids can't focus very well. But I feel like for me, my 2.5-year-old focuses incredibly well when it's an activity that he loves. If he's making a puzzle, if he's cutting like bananas, he'll focus so well for hours if I let him, because it's something that he really loves. And I think we can we're all just toddlers at heart, but we can all kind of use that idea that if it's something that you enjoy, then we can be focused, we can keep our motivation. I occasionally I get emails from people who say, all right, this is my English plan. I'm going to do this and this and this and this and this for 5 hours every day. And okay, if you can keep that up, if all of those things make you feel so excited that you can keep it up for 30 days, 40, 50 days, cool. But that's kind of not likely. Usually you're going to just feel overwhelmed if you...
That's not feasible, right?
You make some artificial ideas about, I'm going to do this. Well, you have to realize you have to enjoy it to want to
in the long run.
Succeed.
It's like you like to play guitar. It's something you do because you like it, and you don't care if it takes you a year, 5 years, 10 years. The longer, the better. So
and you're going to push through, your fingers hurting. You're going to push through those hard times because you like the idea.
You don't consider giving up or just doing it for 5 minutes and then quit, or then doing it for 1 year and then get rid of it. No, the same approach we need to get across to our students when it comes to learning English. It needs to be something you enjoy. The more you enjoy it, the more motivated you are. The more motivated you are, then the more receptive you are to learning, to using it out of the classroom, to watch movies in English, to read in English, to look whatever up on the internet in English. That's what makes motivation to us.
You need to feel the progress. You have to see the progress. You get the progress. You see the progress, then you're going to get motivated.
That's one of the triggers, right?
Yeah, very, very important. And the thing is that the other way around, if you're not motivated, you try to learn something you don't like, no matter you spend 500 years learning that, you're going to learn. You're not going to learn. That's
You
my
need to
opinion.
like it, and
Yeah.
you need to realize, you need to notice. You can tell you're making progress, and that makes you be more motivated. And it's kind of a feedback that goes on and on. You know, it's like the ugly duckling story.
See the transformation.
Right? Exactly. That's the power of motivation. That's it.
Yeah, I
that's
think
how.
for intermediate English learners, it can be more difficult to see your progress.
Mhm.
Like when you start learning another language, you can see
Beginning.
that you went from 0 to 30 really quickly.
Yeah.
And you can see, oh, I didn't know any of this before. But once you already have a pretty good general knowledge, it can be hard to
tell.
track your progress. So something that I often try to tell my students is finding ways to test yourself in real life.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be an exam kind of test. That's the artificial type of test.
Just
But
go
when
ahead and talk
you-
to somebody, right?
Yeah, when you say, okay, I really want to be able to talk about a variety of topics with people. Cool. Okay, that means every Friday, make sure
Go
that
and
you're
talk.
speaking with someone and try to have a different topic. Talk about the chores you do at home,
Mhm.
talk about your vacation or the education system in your country, something complex. But testing yourself to see, have I learned this throughout the week?
Interesting.
And is it working? That can be, or if you want to improve your listening skills, practice listening all week. And then at the end, maybe this is something that I think is kind of a fun test, that watch something at the beginning of the week that is way too complicated, not
And then
way
go
too
back to
complicated,
it,
but it's
right?
pretty complicated, and practice throughout the week. And then at the end of the week or at the end of 2 weeks, watch it again and just see how your mind has opened up to those sounds and those words, because whoa, all of a sudden I can actually understand and I see that progress. That really helps you to stay motivated, because it's worth it. You're not just
totally.
wasting your time.
Yes,
The thing is that when you're learning a language, at least that happened to me, you don't see the progress, something like that. You don't see that. You feel like you're not learning anything, but suddenly it's like a pop. It's like a big step, right? And then you realize, okay, I learned something.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's like that. Yeah. Then you realize, well, now 5 months ago or something, or I
Looking
don't know how
back,
to say
right?
that, and now I think my English is way better.
Mm.
But the thing is, you expect that seeing progress every day, and it's like that. It's not like that.
Sure. Yeah. It's going to be a different type of progress, and you have to be aware of that.
So that is your tip on how to gauge, how to measure your motivation, right? Well, especially not at the beginning, but when you get stuck in an intermediate level, just try to test yourself in a practical way. That is your number 10 tip. And of course, our take on that is motivation has a great impact on your learning process.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, so that's pretty much all. These were our 10 tips.
Yeah.
I was going to say with our special guest Vanessa from Speak English with Vanessa. You guys need to check out her YouTube channel. Speak English with Vanessa. Almost 2 million subscribers. You need to go there, subscribe, and hit the bell. And of course, leave all kinds of comments. The cool thing is they have to be. Your comments need to be in English.
Yes.
So that's challenging
Just
for you
English.
guys.
Yeah.
That's one more thing.
Make sure you read it out loud after you write it.
Yeah.
Whatever. Just make a comment. Just write a comment in English, and that's your excuse to take your English to the next level. And
I'll say you
subscribe.
come from YouTube, from YouTalk channel.
Yeah, YouTalk TV.
channel.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Vanessa.
Okay, Vanessa.
Oh, thank you so much
you
for
very much.
having me. It's really nice to meet you guys and hear about your amazing story learning English. You guys are great role models.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, we're
you.
still learning, and we keep incorporating words and expressions that we're still learning. So it's an ongoing process, and we just want to set an example. So we're learning. You guys are learning.
Yeah.
The best teachers are always learning.
That's it. Absolutely.
Definitely.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and see you soon.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Yes. See you
Bye.
later. Bye.
Bye.